What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, where true crime news always breaks. And we have an unexpected guest today, a very interesting one who's going to join us for about the first 15 or 20 minutes of this episode. And then we're going to be joined by a team, a group of very experienced South Carolina attorneys to discuss this even further. Of course, we know by now that convicted killer and disgraced lawyer Alex Murdaugh, he wants a new trial over the murders of his wife, Maggie, and younger son, Paul. They filed court papers at the South Carolina Court of Appeals that accuse the clerk of court in Colleton County, South Carolina, of tampering with the jury who found him guilty. The question must be asked, will the Alex Murdaugh saga ever end in South Carolina, or will it go on in perpetuity? Well, we got a last minute guest here today, kind of twirling things around here. And he is the publisher of Augusta Business Daily, a well-regarded newspaper. However, right now he's probably better known for being the co-author of Becky Hill on her book, Behind the Doors of Justice, The Murdaugh Murders. He co-authored that book. They self-published it. We welcome to the show Neil Gordon. Neil, how you doing, number one? And number two, how's the media spotlight all of a sudden?
Well, very interesting. Like you, I've had a long career in the media and broadcasting, and I've worked in small town markets like Elmira, New York, and here in Augusta, Georgia, and Spokane, Washington. And I never dreamt that I would be on Good Morning America, CNN, Fox News, you name it, pretty much every major broadcast outlet discussing this. And I should tell you, I'm here to fill in the gaps for Becky, who would love to be here and talk about her situation. But while she's in the midst of this investigation and these allegations, she's hired a pair of attorneys, and they're going through all of the allegations and the affidavits, and they're going to be responding one by one. But once the motion's filed and she has responded, she absolutely would love to tell her side of the story.
And there is Rebecca Hill. Sorry, I didn't mean to remove you, but there is the clerk of court, Rebecca Hill, and there is Neil Gordon back up. But that is Rebecca Hill. Let me ask you, how is Rebecca Hill doing? I assume you've been speaking with her. What is her state of mind right now? There's the book, by the way, Behind the Doors of Justice.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a moment. But what is her state of mind? Does she feel sort of besieged at this point by the defense team?
Yeah, I mean, I think she initially was very overwhelmed, and possibly just a little bit angry, and now she's driven to kind of work through everything. And it's been very, very difficult, because you have to understand, she not only, managed the courtroom and all that is entailed, which is a lot, for 12, 14, 16 hours a day during the 6 weeks, but she had to do a 3 or 4 month build up where there was just so much to do. You know, you got to plan for security measures. If you think about other things that have happened at churches in South Carolina with someone coming in and murdering parishioners, and you think about other past trials, their security had to be dealt with, and parking and media and anything you can think of. And it's been really just, she hasn't been able to take a breath since probably last September. It's been on. So this is just one more step, and she's the most dedicated, genuine, patient, and tough-minded lady that I know. and I'm looking forward to all of the responses and for this to be resolved.
And tell me, she did, as you mentioned, she had a hire counsel. Is she doing that to protect herself from this defense team, from possible libel? I assume she feels that she has done nothing wrong. I don't know if you have a position on this.
Sure. So, she did. What I could tell you is what she said to Court TV. She's gotten about 50 different calls from media outlets, and she was advised not to speak, but she made one little statement, and so I can it's on the record, so I can say that. She says it's not true, and I will put out a statement at the right time. But yes, she has hired counsel to deal with federal situations, because jury tampering is apparently can work into the federal realm, and also someone to help at the state level with the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division somehow involved in this. So it's specifically nothing to do with libel, but it's specifically related to the 65-page document that was filed for the appeal. And it's scheduled to, a response by the Attorney General is scheduled for, I believe, either next Friday, the 15th, or Monday, the 18th. There is a possibility that will be extended because there's some, a lot of allegations, but that's kind of the timeline. And so that's what I know up to the minute.
And Neil, again, Neil is joining us. He is the publisher of Augusta Business Daily. He's also the co-author of Behind the Doors of Justice, the Murdaugh Murders, with Becky Hill, who's obviously a very controversial figure at the moment. Obviously, her nemesis right now is Dick Harpootlian, the defense attorney, and Jim Griffin, who went after her very hard. Do you have any opinion one way or the other? Are there ulterior motives in your opinion from the defense team? Do they make a valid argument, do you think, or not at all?
I'm not really sure. It's hard to sort of look into what their thoughts are about it. I mean, they're certainly entitled to represent Alex, and if they believe, that he potentially is innocent or was innocent, I mean, that's the judicial system. A couple of things, though, did strike me when he did the press conference on Tuesday that I really take exception with. The main thing was he made a statement that Becky Hill allegedly tampered with the jury so that she could get a book deal, make a lot of money, fame, fortune, adoration, all of that. And when I heard that, I thought to myself, well, where's my $200,000 check from Simon and Schuster? I mean, there's no book deal. We spent money for the opportunity to chronicle the trial of the century, almost a memoir, Becky's inner thoughts, as I mentioned, just went from sun up to sundown for 6 months. And we just kind of chronicled that. And so that's patently false. We didn't even meet, Becky and I, till 20 days after the trial. And by the time we ended up getting, we had to go through the ethics commission to get some guidelines to write the book. And by the time all of that got settled, we didn't even begin forming an agreement or writing until, well into April. So I don't get that. And then the other thing that doesn't.
I'm sorry, Neil, real quick. You said that you took some steps to make sure everything was, as we say in Miami, kosher. What steps were those to make sure that you were following what guidelines?
Well, one thing that people wondered, or people do wonder, is how could an elected official, sitting elected official, write a book? And so we researched and we pulled up statutes and actually sent a letter to the Ethics Commission, and they reviewed it and they said, well, you are allowed as a human being, freedom of speech, to be able to do that. However, confidential material, sealed documents, things like that directly relate to your job, you cannot share. So that took, that was really a process of doing that. That's how that worked.
And is this ethics commission, is this an overarching commission for the state of South Carolina?
Yes.
Is this part of the judicial branch? Where do you find this ethics commission?
It's in Columbia. It's part of the state government, and that's how they kind of monitor how the government works, and anything from, are you allowed to accept gifts, and reimbursements, and just doing things, on the up and up the right way. We also had a noted media attorney, very familiar with South Carolina law, look at things, and another attorney and such, and help with the editing of the book.
So it appears, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did. So I apologize. But so from what you're telling me, you really vetted out the ethical side of things, even the legal side. You said you hired a media attorney who basically gave you the green light to go ahead, as long as you were not providing confidential information. Outside of that, it was okay to do this. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so I noticed someone is, that's, I'm old school. So is that a tweet that's on the screen?
No, this is, so we have a live chat. And the reason I brought this up, Black Widower, we have the best guests, Neil Gordon right now, who co-wrote the book with Becky Hill, but we have a better community. And Black Widower comes to us from Europe. And she is saying that I'm confused that a clerk would write about the trial. Even we have a global audience, and a lot of the people overseas say that in their countries it would never be allowed. But again, you're saying that, which is why I brought the comment up. But you're saying that you went through the proper channels and you were, in essence, to use a Hollywood term, green lit on this to go ahead and do it. Is that right?
That's correct. And when we did a lot of research around the country. And to the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware of another clerk of court who has written a book. Of course, attorneys write books after trials and how things have gone and so forth. So that was an interesting situation. But the reason to write the book is, again, this is historical. I'm 59 years old. I don't know that I'll ever see another trial like this. And it was an opportunity, a love letter to the community, to Walterboro, to all the hardworking people that worked to make this happen, all the people Becky got to interact with, national media, to regular folks. We highlighted a young lady with Down syndrome who wanted to see the trial, and it made her week. And just so many other things that, the national media covers the blood and the gore, and this was just peeling back the curtain just a little bit.
Yeah, I just want to read you this statement. We'll go a few more minutes. I know you were gracious with your time, and then as promised, we're going to bring you back Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, for a full show with Neil Gordon, who is the co-author of Behind the Doors of Justice with the now controversial clerk of court, Becky Hill. So Jim Griffin, this is all public record, obviously, and Vic Harpootlian, as part of their motion for a new trial, they say that they had two sworn statements from two different jurors. This one is from juror 630, and the quote is, "I had questions about Mr. Murdaugh's guilt, but voted guilty because I felt pressured by other jurors. She asked jurors about their opinions about Mr. Murdaugh's guilt or innocence. She, meaning Becky Hill, instructed them not to believe evidence presented in Mr. Murdaugh's defense, including his own testimony. She lied to the judge to remove a juror she believed might not vote guilty, and she pressured jurors to reach a guilty verdict quickly so she could profit from it. How do you react to this alleged sworn statement in this affidavit, Neil?
So absolutely, be glad to. The thing that actually may surprise you that jumps off the screen to me is the word pressure. I've never heard Becky Hill be anything but polite, and I have talked with her every day for 6 months. I've never heard her so much as interrupt somebody. She is very measured and very timid. She is just polite. That's not in her DNA to pressure anyone about anything. It's just sometimes you just know people who are like that. And to reach a quick verdict like that, again, to profit from it, I just mentioned, she hadn't even started writing a book until we met. And this occurred, goodness, probably the writing started probably 6 weeks after the trial. So pushing a quicker verdict, that doesn't pass the smell test. That doesn't make any sense at all. And then I think the other part that was discussed was someone that was removed from the jury, and there was some sort of Facebook post. To me, that's not even the issue, because the reality is the judge got word that a particular juror may have been chatting up what she was listening to in the trial and taking it out into the Walterboro community. And the judge was alarmed by that and actually interviewed 3 people that corroborated that this happened with the juror. And he came on, one morning at 9 a.m. that they were starting that day's trial. And he said, I have an announcement to make. I've decided to remove a juror, and here's why. So that's really the point. The reality was she, according to the judge, she was speaking out of turn, and he was trying to protect the sanctity of the court proceedings.
Neil, just a couple of housekeeping points here. Just to reiterate, the book was self-published, and as you mentioned, it was not a blockbuster deal with Simon & Schuster. You, in fact, paid out money, did not make money on the book. Is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, we're hoping, I will tell you, and this is just a byproduct of these allegations. Book sales have been very good through Amazon since all of this happened. But you're correct. I mean, when you put $30,000 in, you have to sell a lot of books to make that up. So correct. Self-published.
And how did you become to know Becky Hill, and how did you two decide to go on this path of writing this book? Did she reach out to you? Were you friends prior?
It's actually an amazing story. My wife, like so many other who I would call obsessed people over this trial, people that were just glued to podcasts and court TV, Law and Crime, the networks, everything. She was one of them. She lives 2 hours away with me here in our home in Evans, Georgia, near Augusta. She traveled with her colleague, Addie Strozier, and spent about 4 or 5 days in Walterboro, spent money out of their own pockets, hotel, wasn't paid to photograph anything. She just wanted to document it and just enjoy this moment in time. The day of the trip to Moselle, for whatever reason, Melissa felt confident, and she set up in Photographer's Row as the caravan was heading to Moselle. This is very interesting because it involves the jury. Becky came over to Melissa and said, Melissa, who is that fellow over there with the word press on his chest on a t-shirt? And she said, well, I don't think he has credentials, but he's been doing a lot of Facebook Lives. She went over to the fellow and reminded him, do not film the jurors' faces. That's against the law. You have to protect the jurors. Do not do that. They took a selfie, the two of them. Melissa, gathering all these pictures and elements from the documentation of being there, reached out to her a couple of weeks later, sent her the selfie and said, do you mind if I do a coffee table book? Could I put your picture in my book? Becky said, sure. And by the way, this was such an amazing trial. I've always wanted to write since I was a little girl, and I need to think about doing a book. And Melissa said, you need to meet my husband. He's never written a book, but he's been in journalism forever. That's how we met. After the trial and everything, we became very close friends, and I got to know her heart, become good friends with her. She's a super person, and that's how the book was published.
Interesting origin story. Collier Landry was on with us for the live press conference. He is well known. His father was a high profile murderer. He murdered his own mother, and it became a documentary. He has a question for you. I'd like to know, and then we'll let you go, Neil. Appreciate the help. Sure. What I'd like to know is if this book being released initiates a retrial of Alex Murdaugh, can Neil and Becky live with the fact that they may have been responsible for that? How would you feel if this book does trigger a retrial?
I don't know how the book would have really anything to do with that, to be honest with you. I mean, the book is one person's perspective of what happened. Now, the allegations of what occurred during the trial, as opposed to what was written about after the trial, that's for I guess the law and the government and the investigators to kind of work out. But we live in a society of freedom of the press. And I mean, let's be honest, this has been the big story all over the world since March. And many people have written about many things. And there have been many podcasts, including by people involved. Jim Griffin has a podcast. Attorneys, Eric Bland has a pod. So many people have been involved. So I don't buy that. I'm sorry.
We've got a super sticker here from Carla Riley. Joel, thanks for providing a platform for all sides of the story. STS best guests and best practices. Do like to hear all sides of the story. And right now, you just heard from Neil Gordon, who is Becky Hill, the now sort of infamous clerk of court for Colleton County, who wrote this book, co-authored it with Neil Gordon, and Neil was gracious and kind enough to come on the show. Again, Neil is going to be back for a full episode Sunday night. Full episode Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. There are a lot of comments. One last question for you, Neil.
Yeah.
Across the board, people are saying Becky Hill just wanted fame, and I want you to be able to respond to that set of comments, kind of a collective comment from many people here. How do you respond when you hear people say Becky Hill just wanted fame?
Boy, trying to define what the word fame meant. Like I said, she grew up and actually wanted to study journalism in college. She ended up becoming a school teacher, got married at a young age, but she always, you ever hear the expression, everybody has a book in them? She just always thought in the back of her mind, I want to write a book someday. And as she was experiencing this trial, that little itch came back that she wanted to scratch. And she's, you're not supposed to talk about ladies' ages, but she's about 56 years old. And, this was an opportunity for her to want to do so. But she's a pretty, she's just a humble person. So I just don't equate the word fame with her. She hopes the book does well. She hopes people enjoy her perspective on it. Does she want to be liked for it, and that, you know, that she did a good job? Sure. She's not out to be famous.
Neil, listen, as we say in Miami also, you're a mensch. Appreciate you coming on last second, very last minute. We're going to let you go, and then we're going to bring in a team of attorneys from South Carolina. Really appreciate your perspective. You'll come back on, is that right, on Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern? Correct?
Yes, we will. And of course, we have a website, behindthedoorsofjustice.com. It has my wife is the photographer, so forgive me. She has a lot of very interesting, unique photos people have not seen, and you can go to the website and learn about that. And if you'd like to learn about the book from Becky, you can also go on there and order it if you like. And I very much look forward to Monday. We spent time with Gigi doing her podcast in Greenville.
Yep.
And we did a co-book signing event with Michael DeWitt in it's somewhere in the Low Country, and I'm trying to remember, and I'm terrible. Hampton County, South Carolina.
And we're actually going to invite Michael DeWitt. He doesn't even know yet. We're going to invite him and Gigi to come on with you on Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. But I'm really looking forward to it. I appreciate you having the courage to come on now it has become a large media platform to share your story, and all the best to you. And we'll come back. And by the way, Becky Hill has an open invite on my show anytime if she would like to come on. If she's able to Monday, let us know.
She's not able to Monday, but I will let her know. And when the time is right, she will absolutely respond and be in this seat. And it's really been a pleasure. I haven't heard of your podcast before. You do a wonderful job, and I'm really interested in learning your origin. And thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
Neil, thank you. Talk on Monday night. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye. And we're bringing in a team of lawyers now with the help of the COE here. There's Lori Murray, Taylor Bell in the car. Are you all hearing me?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I've got you.
Excellent. Lori Murray. Lori is an esteemed attorney. I've got everyone's bio here. She has an office in Columbia, South Carolina that bears her name. She is an aggressive litigator. She's a former law clerk and also a former prosecutor. And she joins us now. I'm going to keep some of you muted, and I'll unmute you as we go here. But Lori, were you able to listen to the interview? What do you make of that interview with Neil Gordon?
I beg to differ with him with it not being about publicity. It's about publicity, or he wouldn't be bragging about being on all of those television shows this morning and whenever he was on. He wouldn't be bragging about being on your podcast. He wouldn't be coming back Monday night. He has said what he needs to say. He's not the issue in this case. Becky is the issue in this case. That book, having some part of it, might be the issue in this case. But I think it's all about publicity. It's all about selling those books. As you heard him say, the sales are up since this has all come to light. And I bought that book a month ago because I knew there were rumors about this. I bought it a month ago trying to figure out what was going on with Becky, because I heard that she'd been told to lawyer up. It's not the best book. I don't necessarily buy that he had no plans to write this book until after the trial. It's just too much coincidence for me. Sorry.
Crime Sleuthin says, by the way, she became a YouTube member. Thank you, Crime Sleuthin. Ooh, this lady don't play. I like her already. Speaking about Lori Murray, Kim Varner. Yeah, Kim Varner is one of South Carolina's most esteemed criminal defense attorneys. And he joins us now. He's been practicing since '79. He's done all the TV networks, CNN, CBS Early Show. We had him on during the height of the Alex Murdaugh trial. Happy to welcome you back, Kim. Kim, what do you make of that interview? How did it strike you?
Start with, can you hear me?
100%, loud and clear.
Okay, good deal. First, I agree. He is not the issue. The fact of writing a book has nothing to do with this case. The critical question is, did she have communications or contact of any kind or nature with these jurors? That is verboten. The only thing a clerk of court can say, or anyone can say to a jury, is, perfunctory things such as, there's the restroom, would you like refreshments, do you need a break, things of that nature. If there were any discussions about the weight of the evidence, the believability of any witnesses, or telling people, they have to be in a hurry, that is jury tampering, flat out, straight out, simple as it can be. The statement that was made by the juror that he felt pressure by other jurors, that's normal. Jurors do pressure one another. That's within the boundaries. But an outside person coming in, particularly the clerk of court, is unacceptable. It is criminal. She can very well be prosecuted for this and possibly go to jail. And it's going to result in, quite probably, if it's proven, a new trial for Alex Murdaugh, which could have a totally different result and possibly with a different judge. So if anyone should feel guilty or bad, it's not the gentleman who wrote the book. He's not the one who allegedly engaged in these bad acts. It's Becky Hill. If she did those things, it needs to be handled.
As they say in Miami, oy vey. I don't know that I can handle another trial. That was going to be my next question. Let's go to Taylor Bell, and then we'll come right back to the other two attorneys here, and then we'll kind of open it up more generally. Taylor, to you, just going to mute. There you go, Taylor. I have you unmuted. Those who watch STS know Taylor Bell. Besides being a handsome young man, he's focused on representing criminal defendants. He graduated from the University of South Carolina Law School, worked in the public defender's office. Taylor Bell, same question to you. It's easy to be a journalist today. What do you make of that Neil Gordon interview, who is now Becky Hill's well-known, suddenly co-author?
So I take it as this being maybe a media front on part of her sending him out, since she can't talk right now and she's retained counsel. I do not take a position one way or the other yet until I've heard and had a hearing to determine the credibility of these allegations. So I'm not taking a position one way or the other yet. But if true, it's terrible. If true, this is terrible for so-called justice. And behind the doors of justice, name of the book is this really justice? Is this what happens behind those closed doors? Here in Richland County, there was an article from a local blog today where it's alleged potentially that there were indictments forged because one had gone missing. And, these are more things that I'm just like, is this actually what happens behind those doors of the chambers? I'm hoping not. I don't believe it does. But if true, this could be trouble, absolute trouble. But if not true, one way or the other, she did the right thing. She's hired very competent lawyers. Will Lewis, I've known him. I've worked with Will on some matters. We've been apart on other sides of each other. He's very, very sharp young man, about my age. Justin Bamberg, sharp man, went to school with him, worked on cases with him. She's done the right thing. So folks that say just because she lawyered up it means that, she's guilty of something, I disagree wholeheartedly. The best thing you can do when an investigation happens, hire you a lawyer that knows what they're doing, knows the landscape, and they're doing everything that they can, I believe, to protect her. But I'm awaiting a hearing to see what really is said on the witness stand by these jurors if it's granted.
And it sounds like that hearing is going to come fairly soon. You heard Neil Gordon say it could be pushed back, but I believe the South Carolina Attorney General has about 10 days to respond to the motion filed by Jim Griffin and Dick Harpootlian. Lori Murray, to you, Becky Hill put out a very simple statement. It's not true, she said. What do you make of that? And to Kim Varner's point, is there going to be a retrial in this case?
Well, I agree with Taylor that we don't have a hearing yet. We need a hearing. We need to hear from all the parties. We need to hear from the jurors. We need to hear from Judge Newman. He's actually now become a witness because of the Facebook issue. But a lot of my followers seem to think that there is a grand conspiracy, that Alex from behind bars is, pulling strings, or that his attorneys are pulling strings to get these jurors to say what they want. And I just think the conspiracy theories are a little bit out there. We lawyers know that we have good facts and bad facts. And for the state, this is a bad fact. And we have to accept that it's a bad fact, and we have to learn what to do with it. And to think that it is not accurate, taking my defense attorney's side, to believe that these jurors were coerced, you have to believe that not just one, but 3 jurors were coerced into believing, or, to lying about what was going on. All of them said that she was in the jury room and had spoken with the foreperson on multiple occasions. All of them said that they were not allowed to take smoke breaks until the verdict came back. All of them said that she talked to them about Alex Murdaugh's testimony. This is all confirmed in a sworn affidavit. And if true, then we have a mess. And then Judge Newman with the Facebook issue being that she said she saw the post on the Friday night before that Monday after he testified. And that would have been like the 24th, I think, or 23rd, that it was actually there that she saw it. And there was a apology post found by Dick Harpootlian when he pulled the Facebook records, saying that, the apology post for that post had been deleted before she said she saw the actual post. So it's just, and those are actual facts that we're dealing with. Those are actual records that we're dealing with. So there's something that's there going on. So we do have a hearing. The process is to go to the Court of Appeals, have them set aside the appeal, stay the appeal for a minute, and then they'll send it back to circuit court for a hearing. And, we just had a hearing today, or I don't know the actual date of the order, but the Supreme Court just came out with an order. No, the Supreme Court just came out with an order in the Gerard Price case where they talked about the requirements for a hearing and whether these hearings should be public, like in the Gerard Price case. And for this case to be closed, I thought it would be closed off because there are jurors testifying, but the state bears the burden of proving that there's a reason that this hearing should be closed off. So if there is indeed a hearing in front of a circuit court judge, probably not Judge Newman, then hopefully it will be public and we'll all get to hear that evidence.
Grant Varner, Kim Varner's son, has just joined the conversation. Grant and Kim, if you can, if it's not too much trouble, you can turn your phones on their side in landscape mode. That would benefit the show greatly. You look a lot more handsome that way, but there you go.
Let's see if it'll do it.
There
we go.
There you go. And Grant, since you just hopped on, I was going to ask this of your father, but I'm going to ask you now. This question at the bottom here is an interesting question. September 26th, Alex Murdaugh, September 22nd, I'm sorry, he's supposed to plead guilty to about $8 million in financial crimes, multiple counts. The question is he still going to plead guilty on the financial crimes with this new revelation? What say you, Grant Varner?
I don't see any reason he wouldn't go ahead with the plea on the financial crimes. I mean, there was a ridiculous amount of testimony about it in the 6-week trial. He admitted to all of it. I don't see the benefit, at least at this point in time, of trying to walk that back.
And Kim, to you, just to reiterate some of what Neil Gordon just told us, and for those of you just joining the show, Neil Gordon co-authored the book Behind the Doors of Justice with the court of clerk Becky Hill, which is now a very controversial book and could potentially trigger a retrial in the Alex Murdaugh case. Obviously, we've got to wait for a hearing that's supposed to happen within about 10 days' time. But Kim, to you, just to recap, Neil Gordon said this was self-published. It wasn't about money, that they actually invested about $30,000 of their own money, that he did not meet with Becky Hill until about 20 days after the trial. They did not begin writing until well into April. And perhaps most importantly, Becky Hill herself sent a letter to the South Carolina Ethics Commission and even hired a media attorney to make sure she could write such a book. And they were told they can include everything that is not confidential to the trial. And it looks like she was given a green light by the Ethics Commission in Columbia, South Carolina. Does that sway your opinion about how this plays out one way or the other, Kim? And is that even the issue here?
It has no bearing whatsoever in my thought process. The critical question is, did she have improper communication with the jury? Do I believe there's a financial issue? Whether it exists or not, I think there's always that hope. That's one thing I question. Number two, being in front of the camera and being the center of attention is something a lot of people desire. It certainly accomplished that. And yeah, overall, the question is, as a clerk of court, she has a sworn duty to make sure that justice is carried out, which means everyone gets a fair and impartial trial, without undue influence, side issues, or anything of that nature. And that totally undermines everyone's faith in the judicial system. It is a violation of Mr. Murdaugh's constitutional rights. Whether he's guilty or not guilty is not an issue. That's for a jury to decide. And the point of that being is, it is for the jury, not for the clerk of court, or not for my opinion or anyone else's opinion. And we're not to communicate with that jury. So the fact that she wrote a book, I don't think is an issue whatsoever. Whether she made money or not, doesn't matter. What her motivation is really not a concern of mine either. The question is, did she have improper contact with the jury? And if she did, that is illegal, that is improper, and that definitely impinges on anyone's right to a fair and impartial trial to be decided by the evidence and by the jury itself, and the jury alone and the evidence alone.
And well put. And Dick Harpootlian, who's been in practice, as he said, close to 50 years, at the news conference, said he's never seen anything of this nature. Lori, to you from Teresa, and you brought this up, you touched on it, which is why I'm coming back to you on it. If there was another trial, would Judge Newman be a witness? This is an interesting curveball here because of the Facebook issue. Can you explain sort of the Facebook issue for those who are not that familiar, and why, if you believe so, there is a possibility he could become a witness as opposed to the judge?
Well, I will say this. So there's a couple of reasons why he's a witness, but not for the trial itself. The Facebook issue, again, is the egg juror, and Becky saying that there was a Facebook post that her ex-husband made saying that she came in or was talking about the trial outside of the court. That post probably didn't exist. He signed an affidavit saying he never posted anything just like it. So it probably didn't exist. So Judge Newman would come in. I want to make one point to you as well, is that we have 10 days for the state to respond to the Court of Appeals regarding the stay. And once the Court of Appeals hears their response to whether to stay the appeal, then we have to schedule the motion in circuit court. A judge has to decide in circuit court whether to hear that motion. And so it's not, that motion's not going to be heard in 10 days. That's the motion we're looking for, not the one on whether to stay his appeal. The one you want to hear is the one in front of a circuit court judge on whether to set aside this verdict and give him a new trial. That is the hearing that Judge Newman will be a witness at, because he has information. He's the one who requested Becky go back and find the Facebook post. He's the one that took the information on the egg juror. He's the one who dismissed her. So he would be a witness at that motion hearing, not at the trial. But also another reason for this too is that Judge Newman, we all thought this trial was over. He didn't do anything wrong. Judge Newman did nothing wrong. But we all thought this trial was over. So he was talking to the press about the trial. He was on the Today Show. He was on another interview, and he talked about his feelings of whether Alex Murdaugh was guilty or not. So I don't think it's impossible to believe that he could be impartial at this point. And let me say that again. It's not impossible to believe that he could be impartial, but to make sure that we don't have any indication of impartiality there, I think that he would recuse himself.
Interesting. Taylor Bell, to you. Do you agree with Kim Varner that it's really not about the book, but it's just about the interaction in chambers and the interaction between Becky Hill and the jurors that is all that really matters?
That's all that matters. I mean, at the end of the day, if there is another trial, the evidence is going to be substantially the same, except for he may not even have to testify, because his prior testimony under cross-examination would then be admissible. I think it's whether or not the jurors were able to make the decision on their own, or whether there was some undue influence, impartiality on behalf of a court official, is the issue of a hearing. It's not the book itself. Any motives of why she wrote the book, yeah, they're going to be explored, and that's the sexy stuff that people want to hear about, the money part that people want to hear. She did it for this, she did it for fame. But at the end of the day, I think it's, was there some type of influence that got into the sanctity of the jury room, where only the jurors are supposed to make that decision, not the judge, not the clerk, not the bailiffs. The jurors are supposed to sit there and go through the evidence and make a determination, free and unfettered. And, going back to Lori's 100% correct in terms of the hearing that we're all interested in, and that's the circuit court hearing. And then if there was a new trial, she's correct. We're not going to have, I don't know if Judge Newman could sit as the judge, since he has gone and talked on national television about this. It's the appearance of any kind of impropriety after he's gone on national television and talked about the sentence that he gave, and talked about, what the beliefs on whether he was guilty or not. And, the explanation that he gave it afterwards, as Judge Newman normally does, about why, he's trying to come up with this sentence, or, his thoughts on the individual in front of him and so forth. He does that regularly, but Lori's 100% correct about that. It's the jury here. This is such an uncharted territory for us lawyers, and what's happening here. There's going to be a bunch of new law made in terms of procedural matters that I think a lot of us are interested in.
Grant, to you, when I was interviewing you guys at the height of the trial, there wasn't an attorney in South Carolina that wasn't missing out on some work watching the trial. What is the word amongst your fellow attorneys there about the prospect of a retrial here? Are jaws dropping?
Oh, so, I've had several court appearances the last couple of days, and it's certainly the buzz. A lot of discussion about it. What do we think is going to happen? And I have yet to run into an attorney that said, I don't think there's going to be a new trial. For the most part, we all agree there is. If there's any substance to the allegations, there's going to be a new trial. What we're interested in now is it going to be heard in the same county? Are they going to change their strategy? Will or won't Alex Murdaugh testify again? I'm certain his testimony is going to be the subject of a lot of discussion in a courtroom, no matter what the outcome. But I think we are headed for a new trial. I'm hopeful it won't be a 6-week trial this time. Not that I didn't enjoy all the conversations with the Fox Carolina affiliate, and I know Lori was there. I'm co-counsel with Taylor on a case here in Greenville County. All of us, I think, have enjoyed the spectacle and commenting on it, but I don't know that any of us are really looking forward to an additional 6 weeks
Right.
dedicated to this.
I'll agree with that.
Kim, back to you here from Sharon Divis. Poot and Jim, Harpootlian, contemporary of yours, and Jim Griffin said they went door to door to speak to jurors. Are we supposed to believe that? Don't they have paralegals? Since you're, more old school, don't take that the wrong way. Kim, in a situation like this, would you be going door to door? And I'm just curious what you thought more broadly about their press conference that happened Tuesday outside the Court of Appeals.
First, this is a murder case. It is the most serious case. It is an incredibly high-profile case. I'm not so sure that I would entrust that kind of approach to a paralegal. It is quite possible I would have done it door to door myself, because first, I think I have more powers of persuasion. Number two, possibly it may stress upon the person I'm asking questions of the importance of it, that the lawyer is there. And, this whole system is set up, and I can speak as an old lawyer. courthouses have been designed since, our Constitution got started. You always put jurors in really a secluded area. They're at the back corner of the courthouse or behind the hallway or something where people cannot get to them. In the new courthouses, they're basically behind locked doors. You can only go back there with the bailiff. That is sanctimonious property. And this not only has ramifications on a murder case, but this literally, it's jaw-dropping for lawyers. We've never heard of anything like this. The clerk of court being involved in this, it's going to create new law. It's going to create new safeguards. And somebody has got to do something to shore up the public's confidence that you do get a fair and impartial trial. It is of great significance, not just to lawyers, but to the public at large, that they have faith in the system. And the fact that a lawyer himself would go do it, I think these guys are smart enough to realize the importance of the questions they're asking and the significance, because they got people to sign affidavits alleging that the clerk of court committed a crime. That's about as serious as it can get in terms of allegations, because if it's not true, there's going to be ramifications for those individuals. So I don't find it at all unusual that the lawyers themselves would have gone door to door. But again, I had heard the rumors. I had heard the innuendos. I don't think they were making cold calls. I think they smelled a fire and they were going to see where it was coming from.
And remember that Dick, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but remember that Dick said that they were mad about this book coming out, and that's what led them to actually speak up. And I do see that question down there. Not everyone, we only have one juror sworn affidavit. The other is Dick Harputian's paralegal. But we actually have two jurors sworn affidavit, and one of them talked to them but refused to go on the record. So there are two. One of them is the egg lady. One of them is a juror who stayed on the jury panel. And then one of them is the egg lady. So there are three different ones. But to all of the people out there that I keep seeing on my social media as well, that are very upset that he might get a new trial, that he's guilty, he deserves to be in jail. It doesn't matter what she did. This is safeguard. These are attorneys safeguarding the constitutional rights of the citizens of our state and of our country. And I would hope that you recognize that if you were arrested for a crime, whether you committed it or not, whether your brother, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, whatever, if somebody you knew was charged with a crime, that you would hope that we would all as attorneys do the same thing for you, that we would look and make sure that your constitutional rights are protected, regardless of whether we think you are guilty or not, regardless of whether we think Alec is guilty or not. The man, if these are true, deserves a new trial because his constitutional right to a fair trial was violated.
Michelle Cavernos, otherwise known as Mish, who watches us in Cape Town, South Africa. Taylor, I'm going to throw this one to you. By the way, I say this every show. If you find a better panel, we started off with Neil Gordon, the co-author of Becky Hill's book, and these esteemed lawyers. You find a better panel anywhere today, Court TV, Law and Crime, CNN, I'll give you your money back, even though you didn't pay anything. Mish Cavernos says, none of this is saying he didn't do it, Taylor Bell. It's crazy that this could potentially get a new trial. I know it's his rights, etc., but still, can you speak to that? No one is coming out. His defense team is not coming out and saying he's innocent of these charges. They're all saying that what Becky Hill did was not kosher, and it impedes his constitutional rights. Can you kind of draw the line there? Does it even matter if he committed this crime or not at this point?
It doesn't in terms of procedural. I tried a case 2 weeks ago, and my theory was, it wasn't the facts of the case, my theory was, do the right thing, you get the right result. Do the wrong thing, you get the wrong result. And the government did the wrong thing, so they're going to get the wrong result here. And the jury came back and said not guilty. Okay, facts were not on my side. Here's what matters. It matters that everybody, as Lori said, gets a fair trial. And, the only reason I believe that we're actually learning about some of this stuff is because this is a high profile case and someone's, why Dick and Jim are still on this case. I'm going to say they got egos too. they're still on this because of their ego. And, it just may turn out that their egos are right sometimes. Now, if it doesn't work out for them and it falls flat on its face, that's not going to be a good thing either. But it's Jim's ego, it's Dick's ego that has them continuing to work. I don't believe they're continuing to get paid. They got denied asking for additional funding. And it's them, out there trying to get back at everything. Part of me is like, they're never going to get rid of the fact that Alec told everybody from the get-go he wasn't there, and that there's a video that has him there with his voice on it. You're never getting rid of that. That's still a fact. That's still something. Part of me thinks, they're really, really butthurt because they believed Alec from the very, very, very beginning, saying he wasn't there. Then all of a sudden this video drops, and what about you not being there, Alec? What do you have to say about that to us? And, but they were already in so deep that they had to go, and their egos kept them going. And now it's keeping them going. It's not about whether he did it or not. It's about the rights of everybody and that they're protected. And we want to make sure that, that everyone gets a fair trial at the end of the day.
Taylor Bell, you're making Kim Varner proud as a young attorney, talking about the sanctity of the courtroom. And both Jim Griffin and Dick Harpootlian were on the Today Show on Wednesday and spoke about that. But Kim Varner, back to you. I got some interesting tweets. I'm going to read one to you from a person named Jay Bird. And they tweeted at me, if Dick Harpootlian is a witness, this means that he knew this was troublesome before the verdict and did not report it. To get a new trial, this needs to be info unknown to the defense until after the verdict. Dick Harpootlian has admitted to the press that he was a witness before the verdict, and you do see him mentioning that about Moselle, watching these interactions. He said that at the press conference, and then one of his partners tried to step in. What do you make of this tweet? Is there any veracity to what Jay Bird is saying?
I don't believe so. I'm going to go back to what he said just a moment ago. Everybody was in, I think the heart of that question from South Africa was, why are we doing this? The guy is guilty. We're doing this because the integrity and the necessity of preserving our system that has made this country so strong is more important than the money it would cost or Alex Murdaugh himself. It doesn't matter whether he's guilty or not. But to go back to your question, first, Dick is the attorney here. Dick cannot be a witness in this case and be the attorney. What he had mentioned previously was suspicions or possible fears that he had or things that led him to question things. But he is not a witness, what's called a direct witness, unless he saw the clerk of court engage in a conversation and knew the content of that conversation. And I can assure you, if he had heard anything other than a cursory discussion, such as you turn left here, you turn right there, there would have been a motion for a new trial right then and there. And that would have been brought up. And yes, he may have been called as a witness on that motion, but in and of itself, but no. I don't agree that he is disqualified. I don't believe he is a witness to this. I think he may have raised the question, and that's every lawyer's job. If there's anything that even remotely, makes your knee flex, you explore that and you continue that if you find more evidence. Quite obviously, the jury tampering itself, to the extent that has been alleged, I don't know of any way it could have been discovered unless you were back there with the jury and with the clerk when it was going on. Obviously, only the jury was there and only the clerk was there. So no one else would have had any direct knowledge until they talked to the jurors after the verdict.
Grant Varner, similar tweet. By the way, Kristen Grogan says the ethics committee did not give Becky Hill authorization to write the type of book she did. We don't know that to necessarily be the truth yet, but from my interview with Neil Gordon, it appears that they followed what they thought were the proper channels, going to the ethics commission and, according to them, getting the permission. But there's another person that tweeted at me, Grant, named Aloha Melba. She says Dick Harpootlian was self-admittedly a witness at Moselle, and he said nothing at the time. of conduct he now alleges is untoward? And weren't all the attorneys in chambers aware of a potential jury issue which nobody raised at the time? If Judge Newman is a potential witness, what about Dick Harpootlian? Similar tweet. Your response, Grant.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody here is going to be a direct witness, so to speak. Like Kim said, as an attorney, particularly a defense attorney, if you suspect something, you bring it up, you may get a chance to argue it, it may be nothing. What has changed here is it's gone from mere, it doesn't smell right, something's up, to we now have sworn affidavits that definitively something was in fact up. And that's a big difference. You know, attorneys constantly argue in the courtroom, and we debate what we think. Well, now we've got, and Lori, I think you said it was 2 affidavits now. I think that was correct. If we've got 2 affidavits, if there are 2 sworn affidavits, that's substantial verification that something happened, and that needs to be explored. I don't believe that Dick Harpootlian will be a direct witness to that. The person that tweeted is absolutely correct. I mean, there were discussions in chambers about, I think it was the egg lady juror, but I don't know that those discussions went beyond, I mean, Judge, if you want to get rid of her, you know, we'd like to keep her. I don't know that there was discussion, and I highly doubt there was discussion at that time about jury tampering, particularly by the clerk of court. I think that was discovered after the trial.
I will agree with you on that. And I think that it's the cumulative effect. It's not just one thing that you can take by itself. It's the cumulative effect of all of these different actions taken together that makes it kind of questionable. And I believe that the egg lady discussions about the Facebook post, those were on the record, but in chambers. So it was an in-camera hearing, but on the record. So there is a transcript attached to the motion that Dick filed. So that's there. But I think that the biggest issue with that is, and because I have a problem with this part too, they did not take exception to her being released from the jury. I mean, I went back and watched that part of the trial. Whenever Judge Newman brought her into the courtroom, Dick Harpootlian said something. He said, "I don't take exception to your order, and you're removing her, but I did want to put this on the record." And as defense attorneys, we all know you take exception to everything. Protect your record. You accept to everything, object to everything. So, you know, you have to look back now, Monday morning quarterbacking, and say, oh, that's a problem. That was a problem. That was a problem. But when you take it all together, now you see the whole football game.
So also, I think we're going to have all the other jurors possibly be subpoenaed here. And if they weren't willing to speak with Dick or Jim or anyone that went out there, they're now going to be under oath and be asked questions that they might not have answered. And so potentially exploration of what's going on in their mind and what they saw, that may come out too here. I think the state will object to that if a hearing is granted, but that's something that you're going to potentially see. These people that, you know, the jurors that did not talk to them that may have information. I'm very interested to see how that plays out as well here.
Me too.
I think you're spot on with that. Once Dick and Jim have subpoena power to compel these people, there are going to be a lot of questions asked. Without hesitation, there are going to be a lot of questions.
You know, the state's going to sit there and object. This is fishing expedition, you know, all that. They're going to do their normal, their normal routine with that. But, you know, once you've got one, well, the question is then, well, can these people support what we're saying, or are they going to deny what we're saying here?
But don't you think the state is already right now going out and trying to meet with every other juror that didn't?
Oh yeah.
And then the question is, so how many times did you meet with the government prior to taking this witness stand?
Absolutely.
And you wouldn't agree to talk to me. Oh, so you met with them 3 times and refused to talk to me. So this is the first time I'm getting to have this conversation with you.
But it's funny to me because they have 10 days and, they've got, they have access to several investigators on salary there. So they're probably like, phew, everybody's like, left the door. They're like cockroaches spreading out and going out to all, I don't mean, that they're cockroaches, but just the analogy of everybody just running out to all of these jurors that even the ones that were on record, but especially the ones that were not. And remember that one of them is the brother of the police officer who was the first police officer to take stand in the trial.
Yeah, you're right. And so I'm reading this question here on this.
Yeah, there's a question here. Let me just get to Kim for 1 second. So Kim, Lori just brought up an interesting point. Pull back the curtain for us. What is going on behind the scenes right now on the defense and the state side, on the government side right now?
Well, first, they've got to be mindful, and I think everyone has to be mindful. This is not an appeal. It's not something you have to take exception to. It's not a retrial of his case. What this is an investigation and a motion for a new trial based on criminal activity. Nothing more, nothing less. And to come in and speculate to all this other stuff when people ask questions about his guilt or innocence in a retrial, which could be totally different, could be the same verdict, it could be a different verdict. But the key issue is, was a criminal act committed by a county official, and did it impair his right to a fair and impartial trial that all of us had? I hate to get up and wave the flag, but I believe in our system. I love it, and its integrity has to be preserved and protected by all of us, whether we agree with Alex Murdaugh or what he did or alleged to have done, whether we believe it or not. That's not the issue. The issue is everyone's right being protected.
I love how you break it down so simply and so eloquently. You're absolutely right.
And we're going to go a few more minutes. So there's a lot of questions, and then we'll wrap it up if the lawyers will indulge me. Midwest Girl, Taylor, you were starting to read this. Question, please. Even if he gets a new trial, will he still get life in prison for the fraud he's about to plead guilty to, assuming he does, Taylor Bell?
So, yeah, I was reading that, and back of my mind is Harpootlian is the master manipulator of everything, of the system. He manipulated legislation on the death penalty to get it declared unconstitutional at a circuit court level. He is a manipulator, and part of me believes this is a manipulation to get a new trial and send Alec to federal prison, because his sentence would be vacated if there's a new trial. He's already going to have pled in September this month to the federal charges, which you're going to have to run the federal charges first, and then he'd go do the state time if there's a new trial. So part of me is, all right, we're going to get this overturned. We're going to get him in federal prison. I don't know what the guidelines are for his conduct. I haven't looked at them. It takes a lot. I don't have the pre-sentencing report, so I don't know any of that off the top of my head, but he's an older fella. I mean, if he got, 15 years or so, he's probably dying in federal prison. 20 years. I don't think he's got that much time left on him, on his clock. But, I'm looking at that. Yeah, he'll go to federal prison, but I think part of me thinks this is a play, even if the facts aren't on their side, because they've seen the facts. They know that the video puts him there. They know that he's going to get found guilty at the end in the back of their mind. All right, well, we put him in federal prison, a much better place, that he is safer. He gets access to more visits with his family, all of that.
Okay, and easy now, because he's only like 2 years older than me. So,
Hey, but the life
Kim's older than me, so easy
the
now.
life expectancy inside the Department of Corrections for an individual is substantially lower than it is.
But I will say that you're right. I agree with you on that. We talked about it last night, is that you can run state time concurrent to federal time, but you can't run federal time concurrent to state time. So even if he gets a new trial and is found guilty all over again, he still wins because he'll serve his time in the federal prison instead of the state prison. That's a win for him all day.
Yeah, but Laura, you're also out there active, and I don't think he's too active in that cell. I'm just going to say.
Yeah, I don't think the 50,000.
Did you see the pictures?
Have it, yeah.
You didn't like that shirtless photo of him? That didn't turn you on.
Get my sunglasses out.
Grant Varner, to you from Eileen Taylor. A couple more minutes and then we'll wrap it. How come these jurors did not speak up at the time during the trial if they felt things were not correct? Can you speak to what jurors go through? There is a certain aura inside a courtroom, and I don't know how free jurors always feel, but if you want to address the question.
So I'm in a unique position on that because I actually got selected for jury duty and spent 5 days as a juror on a case. And, Joe, it's very interesting. For the most part, members of the panel do not have any courtroom experience. They rarely have any legal experience or law enforcement experience, anything like that. And they sounds kind of cavalier to think it, but they don't know what's correct and what isn't correct. This is an elected official, someone that they should have trust in or confidence in, and most people are not going to go in, particularly on their first round with jury duty, and be fully aware of what's right and what's wrong. And so if, as accused, Becky Hill went in there and said, hey, pay attention to his body language, don't be deceived, don't be fooled, members of the jury may not have realized at the time that was highly improper. They just may not have been aware of it because this is one of the few people that was given access to the jury. Now, I think if a defense attorney had done that or the prosecutor, very clearly, Judge Newman said multiple times, these people do not need to talk to you. They can't ask you questions. You're going to stay away from them. We'll have lunch brought in for you. We'll have dinner, things like that. But Judge Newman never gave an instruction to the jury panel, hey, the clerk of court is only to give you instructions on where the restroom is, take your lunch order, escort you to and from the building. So the fact of the matter is these people may not have even realized it, but after the fact, I think we've all witnessed some of these people have gone on national talk shows. They've had an opportunity now to talk about the case. And you got to remember, while the case is going on, they're not to discuss it, even amongst themselves. But now they've had an opportunity to do that. It's highly possible somebody sat them down and said, whoa, 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 that's not right. That shouldn't have happened. And I don't know that the book is the catalyst. I haven't read the book. I haven't talked to Dick or Jim. So I don't know if the book has something inflammatory that would have upset members of the jury. But it's highly possible that now they've had a chance to talk about it, someone said, whoa, you need to say something. This wasn't right.
Julie Fitzgerald, great panel. Invite all four back in the future. I definitely am. I feel my brain getting gains by proxy. Love listening to lawyers dive deep. Lori Murray, to you. So Jim Griffin and Dick Harpootlian both were on the Today Show and said, and I quote here, what Rebecca Hill did was, quote unquote, highly improper and, quote unquote, frankly illegal. Jim Griffin went on to say, anytime there's outside influence in the sanctity of the jury room, it is improper. What about their play sort of in the court of public opinion right now? Would you be doing the same thing, going on these national news shows to try to drum up the court of public opinion to pressure the powers that be to retry Alex Murdaugh in this murder case?
The question is whether that's the reason that they're doing it. Every time we've all been covering this Murdaugh case for a very long time. I covered it. I didn't even know it would be popular, but one of the first posts I did, I was like, okay, I didn't know y'all want to know more about this. We'll do more posts about this. And so every time you do a post on Murdaugh or mention the Murdaugh case, your viewers go up. Your viewers on this podcast should probably go up talking about the Murdaugh case. My viewers on my videos go up. Dick and Jim, Jim's got a new podcast out there. Dick is just enjoying the spotlight for one last hurrah, I think, because I would think he was close to retiring. But if that's the reason that they're doing it, and would I do it that way? I might make a statement and then step away. I might make a statement that says this is what we filed and step away. I wouldn't go, as far as to go on the Today Show, I don't think. But who knows? The publicity is always a good thing. There's no such thing as bad publicity, as they say, and they certainly are enjoying theirs.
And Kim, to you, this is one of the more interesting things to me because it's subtle but huge. The motion for retrial argues that Becky Hill hurried the deliberations by denying 6 smokers on the jury smoke breaks and threatening to send them to a hotel if they didn't wrap up that night. And we now know that the jury deliberated and came back with a verdict within 3 hours. Nicotine is a powerful drug. What do you make of this?
First, I'm a victim of that drug. I'm a smoker. But look, I don't really see that's going to go anywhere. I mean, it's not something you can't live without. You might be uncomfortable. We all get on planes. Lawyers are in court for hours on end, and no, we can't smoke in court. I don't think that carries any weight whatsoever because it wasn't like they deliberated for 12 hours, 10 hours, even 5 hours. They were out roughly 3 hours. But to impliedly threaten them with, if you don't reach a verdict, I'm going to put you in a hotel, I'm not quite sure I think that's a threat. I mean, it's a free place to stay, and that is what they will do if a jury is sequestered. I don't think that's going to really have any bearing on either an appellate decision or the judge's ruling on this motion. I think what it's going to boil down to is, did something interfere with a fair and impartial deliberation by the jury? It doesn't matter whether a person agreed with what Becky Hill allegedly said or not, whether they thought Alex was lying. But the question is, did someone infer to them that Alex was lying or that he was guilty? If that happened, that's a new trial, plain and simple.
I do want to disagree with you on the cigarette thing. You got 6 people on that jury that smoke, and when they want to smoke, they want to smoke, and they've been sitting through hours and days upon end on testimony. And you've got, not only that, you've got her as they head in there saying, well, this shouldn't take you long, and no, you can't smoke, no, we're gonna put you up in the hotel if you can't reach a verdict. I think totality of the circumstances, you have to look at all of that. I guarantee you poll a bunch of smokers and they'll say, you can't tell me I can't smoke for 3, 5, 4 hours, because most of them, and I don't know who they were on this jury, but people are smoking a pack a day. That's a lot of smoking for your awake hours. So I think
it also makes sure that the other witnesses, the other jurors are witnesses, and they get called because you get all the smokers then. So you've got facts laid to call at least those 6.
Yes, absolutely.
Sharon I says, I clerked for 32 years and never would have gone near a jury. And here we go. I always say best guest, better community. Not only the best panel, STS also has the best people on the chat. Thanks all from Sweden, lest you think we are not a global show. Taylor Bell, by the way, I believe Alex Murdaugh is 56-ish years old, maybe 57. And Taylor Bell, I'm not far from that myself. So be careful what you're saying.
Get him.
Yeah, just because you're young and someone said who's the guy that plays Bond now? Is it James Craig? Something Craig.
Yes.
Anyway, they just said that Taylor Bell looks a little like him. So I'm going to have to bring Taylor down a notch or two. Us old men still have our I don't know what we
Sean
have.
Connery. There you go. You're Sean Connery, the young Sean Connery.
Yeah, Sean Connery for sure. Taylor Bell, to you. Final question, then we'll get final thoughts. If there's a retrial, we touched on this. Is Alex Murdaugh getting back on that stand again? He's thinking.
Maybe. Probably not. They already have his previous testimony. It's already been cross-examined. I think the state will use that in the retrial as is. I don't believe he will get up there because you might be able to introduce the actual sentencing that, hey, I already pled guilty, and get the certified convictions in through public records exception and not have to get him up there to say that I did these financial crimes. So you get that information in of acknowledgement of the prior bad acts. And it's going to all depend on whether the new judge, I'm not sure that it would be Clifton Newman as the new judge. So you got a new decision on whether that evidence comes in. So I think it's an end of game decision at the end of the day. I don't think it turned out too well for them. I understand why they did it, but I'm not here to say one way or the other right now that I would say he's going to take the witness stand again. But I've got a lot of thoughts on that are too long for this right now.
And the chief of everything putting it up, they called Taylor Daniel Craig. That is his name. What do I know about pop culture? Relax over there, COE, jumping on to let Taylor know he looks like Daniel Craig. And by the way, Ketchup, a friend of the show, let me know there's going to be a press conference 3 p.m. today on Danilo Cavalcante. He is the person we focused on yesterday. He escaped from prison outside of Philadelphia. Guy's been on the run. I think this is day 8. They're having a press conference. Hopefully they caught this guy. But the chief of everything saying, "Don't tell Joel I need a lunch break. I see everything." So there might not be any lunch today. I run a tight ship here. Thank you to these amazing guests, Grant Varner and Kim Varner. If I ever had a law professor, I'd want it to be Kim Varner, and that's why Grant Varner is a good attorney, because he's the son of Kim Varner, born in Greenville, South Carolina, lived there a majority of his life. Like his dad, he's done all the media rounds. Bottom line question, Grant Varner, is this going to be deja vu all over again? Or are we going to have another Alex Murdaugh retrial?
I think without question we're going to see a new trial. And I'm fairly confident he probably will testify again. He is his own biggest fan. He's his biggest believer. And I'm confident that he thinks he can win it himself.
And I was just going to go to your dad who popped off screen. So I'm going to go to Taylor Bell, fine private practice attorney, once a public defender. There's a comment here, Taylor, just reminding all of us that this issue is not about Alex Murdaugh. It's about our Constitution and our system of justice. Your final thoughts, and does this go to a retrial?
I think it does go to a retrial. I do. I think, well, I say there's going to be a hearing, and depending on what happens in that hearing, there could be a retrial. But if there is a retrial, it's going to depend on whether or not what happened impacted the decision that was made in the jury room. But yeah, I'm going to go with Grant retrial after I try to explain myself.
And how soon do you think, Daniel Craig, before the retrial?
Oh God, that'll be a while. We're not going to get a retrial for probably another year. I would imagine 6 months to a year out, because I just don't. I think they got to prepare for it again. I think you're going to have the attorney general. You're going to have Dick and Jim having to make accommodations again. You're going to have to figure out where it's going to be tried, who's the judge, because if it's not Clifton Newman, then where are we getting the judge from to retry this case? Because the Supreme Court's going to have to make that decision. It's not going to come from a judge down in the Low Country, I don't believe, because a lot of, I just think that we're going to have a lot of issues that have to work their way out, as I've said before. This is uncharted territory for the legal community here in South Carolina.
Lori Murray, she has an office in Columbia, South Carolina that bears her name. She is an aggressive litigator, as you can tell by the way she is reacting to comments here. She's a force unto herself. She's a negotiator whose focus is on criminal defense and personal injury matters. She's also a former law clerk and a former prosecutor, and she is the National Trial Lawyers Top 100 Trial Lawyers voted Elite Attorney 2020 by her peers in both personal injury and criminal law, which is no surprise. Lori Murray, I hope you come back on the show. I know we sent you an invite. You didn't even know you were supposed to come on last week. We crossed wires. But will there be a retrial? How soon? And are we ever going to stop hearing about Alex Murdaugh?
I can dream of a world where we do stop hearing about Alex Murdaugh. But I do believe that we are likely going to see another trial for him based on this evidence. But again, if 10 or the other 9 jurors come in and say that's not how it happened, I don't remember any of that, maybe not. But I think that with all of the inferences that are there, he does deserve a new trial. That new trial will not take place anytime soon. It will be at least a year down the road. And at this point in time, I hope that the defense has a better chance to understand the evidence. I hope the state, they presented their case very well. I think it could have been shortened down, and I hope that they shorten that down so we're not sitting with another 6-week trial. But in any event, I do believe that we will be seeing a new trial.
Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Podcast STS, because when I got the interview with Neil Gordon last moment today, that's where I put it out, at Podcast STS, for all the show times and information. We're also on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor. You can support us on Patreon and become a YouTube member. Space Coast does all the work behind the scenes. Steve Cohen, otherwise known as Meave Moen, also does all the work behind the scenes, and the COE, she does them behind the scenes and sometimes yells at me face to face. Kim Varner, who's never been yelled at by his wife. He's been in general practice in Greenville, South Carolina since 1979, with a major emphasis in criminal defense and domestic litigation. He's been on them all: CNN, CBS Early Show, Air America. The list goes on. As I said, I want him to be my law professor. Kim, the final word goes to you. And is there going to be a retrial in this case?
I think there will be a retrial. And one thing I wanted to add to Grant, what Grant was saying, he said he's his own biggest fan. He's also his own worst enemy. The real question is not, will there be a retrial? But if there is a retrial, will another judge let those financial issues in? That's a big, big question. That could totally change the outcome. And I'm willing to venture this. If they do not bring in, or the judge doesn't allow the financial issues to come in, I don't think Alex Murdaugh's ego can be stopped by Dick Harpootlian, Jim Griffin, or anyone. I don't think they want him to take the stand before. I think he will definitely take the stand if the financial issues are not allowed. I think he believes he has the power to persuade that jury, even though he failed once, and I think they will pick a different location where he's got a better shot. Now, that has no bearing on whether he's guilty or innocent. It's on trial strategy.
And a shout out, by the way, to the Augusta Business Daily publisher. That is Neil Gordon, who co-wrote the book Behind the Doors of Justice, The Murdaugh Murders, with the now very controversial figure, the clerk of court for Colleton County, Becky Hill. He was on the first 20 minutes of the show. Greatly appreciate if STS Nation could share this show. This is a big one with a lot of breaking news from all sides, including Neil Gordon and this great panel. Quick programming note. The COE has me working real hard. We got some breaking news on the BTK serial killer. As you all know, I am friends with his daughter, otherwise known as Kerry Rawson. There it is tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, a legendary dynamic panel of best guests to discuss the latest news in the BTK investigation. There are new sketches, new drawings, and we have Dr. Ann Burgess, who is literally named a living legend, the Netflix show Mindhunter, based on her work at the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit and the own work that she has done in her lifetime, along with Cheryl McCollum and Dr. Joni Johnston, who studies serial killers. And then tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern time, we are doing Phil Waters and Scott Duffy. A huge thanks to the great state of South Carolina. As much as I dread a new Alex Murdaugh trial, it gives me a chance to hang out. These are some of the most fun people that I've met across the country. So until next time, STS Nation, love you, America. Love you, the Palmetto State, South Carolina, and everywhere in between. See you at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. Guests, hang on for 1 second.